Hi everybody. In this video I just want to discuss the subject of how to position yourself around the table during a rally and just explain that in a little bit more detail. What I've done is just set up the table itself just to show the position of the ball, where my opponent would be hitting the ball from, and to also illustrate the possible angles of play that my opponent has. So assuming that he's going to hit the ball from that location, his possible angles are he can get about this wide down my backhand side. Can't really get it much wider, because to get it any wider he'd have to get really short on the table, which is fairly difficult to do with any sort of speed. So that's more or less the limit of how far he can put it down my backhand. On the forehand side, on the other hand, because of this extra angle that he's got, he can actually take the ball out quite wide onto my forehand side. So he has a little bit more angle in this direction. This is just more or less the centre line of the angles that are available to my opponent. So the first question we're looking at in terms of where we're going to position ourselves during the rally is that I've played some stroke from a position on the table, and I'm asking myself, where do I go next? Where do I go? Where's the best place to be ready for my opponent's possible shots? So the first thing I'll do after playing a stroke is think to myself, okay, where is it likely that he's going to hit the ball from? And of course this is not something that you necessarily can do fully in your head. You don't hit the ball and then go, okay, where is he going to hit that from? This just happens. It's a natural process. You can't run it through your head step by step by step. But it's the thing that you put together all at once, and these are the things that allow you to go to the right location. So I'd hit the ball, and my next reaction is, okay, where is he likely to take the ball from? And I'm going to estimate in my head in a split second, roughly from that location where the ball is there. That tells me that if I'm standing here, or if I'm standing out here, I'm not in the right location just yet. So I want to move towards the correct position. And first thing, let's look at the left-right position. So if I'm over here and he's going to hit the ball there, I want to be more or less in the centre of the angle of play. It's not always exact. You know, the situation will change depending on your opponent and what he's doing and stuff like that. But generally speaking, if he's going to hit a forehand from over there, I want to be more or less in the centre of the angle of play. That doesn't mean I actually want to be standing right in front of it with my tummy, belly button right on that line. Because if I do that, as you can see, what I've now got is, because I have more reach in my forehand, I can almost cover that hole, but here on the backhand I've left a big gap on my backhand side because I don't have that reach. So standing straight with my belly button on the line isn't quite right for me. So what we need to do, a better position would actually be somewhere where my bat is along this centre line. If I stand there, now what you'll see is that on my backhand side I can reach comfortably to about here, leaving about that much gap. On the forehand, I can reach comfortably to about there, leaving about that much gap. So I'm now in a position where there's a much more even, in terms of even gap on each side really. So I've got better coverage from this position. So this should be, in terms of my left-right, I'd be heading towards this place. So I'd play the ball, see where he's hitting it, and I would be starting to move towards here, so that I'm roughly the right left-right position by the time he plays the ball. Now the next thing, just to make clear and to explain a little bit more, is that when I do that, I don't actually want to be facing so that my shoulders and legs are square to the end line. Because if I do that, I won't be facing in quite the right direction. What I want to do is I actually want to put my shoulders square to where my opponent's going to hit the ball. And same for the waist, basically, my upper body facing the ball. So it means that instead of moving here and facing forward, I'm going to move there but face a little bit to my left and face towards the ball. what that will do now, as you can see, is that by doing that, my racket also tilts around a little bit. Now the final probably thing that I would say about that is when you are turning and moving, don't actually point your racket at the ball. Because if I stand with my shoulders facing the ball in the right position, but I point my racket at the ball, I'm actually in a slightly backhand weighting position compared to my forehand. So I'm weighting slightly on my backhand. What you want to do is take from the fact that if you're standing ready, the distance between your centre and your bat is around about 30 odd centimetres or a little bit more to a foot. And that's how far to the right of the ball I want the tip of my bat to point. So instead of coming over and pointing at the ball, I'm going to point a little bit, about a foot to the right, and now I'm in a perfect stance where I can be backhand or forehand, but I'm neutral. So I'm not waiting on my backhand side a little bit, and I'm not waiting on my forehand side a little bit. I'm actually pointing just a little bit to the right of the ball, and it doesn't matter which way my opponent goes, I'm perfectly ready. So that's my left-right placement. Really, it's just a matter of your best guess where your opponent's going to hit the ball from. Go to the centre of the angle so that your racket is actually along the centre line, and point, for a right-hander, point a little bit to the right of the ball. Shoulders facing the ball where your opponent's going to hit it from, and you're pretty good. You're pretty much set. Same thing, if my opponent was going to hit, say, from the backhand side, instead of coming to here, what I'd be doing is I would, again, be coming to the centre of his possible angles from his backhand, and now my shoulders are going to face towards the backhand side, and again my racket pointing a little bit to the right of the ball. And I'm in good position. So for left-right positioning, that's the simplest way to do it. It's a good way for new players to understand. Don't try and necessarily in your head think I'm going to do this and that and that. As long as you understand it, you'll get out on the court, you'll start to apply it without having to give it a lot of conscious thought. And it's really just an unconscious thing that we do. We hit the ball, we automatically see where it's going, we start moving, and we turn our shoulders so that we're in the right kind of line for the ball. And it all just happens. And you'll get better as you do it. The next thing that we have to worry about, though, is not just our left-right placement, but how far away from the table we're going to be. And this can vary. For advanced players, it can be quite complex depending on the situation. For new players, such as what I'm aiming to do in this video and for the ebook that it goes with, we want to keep this fairly simple. Most of the time as a new player, you're going to be not right up at the table, and you don't want to be far away. You want to be in a comfortable depth where anything short, you can reach in with one easy step. Anything hard, anything your opponent really attacks hard at you, you're generally just going to block the ball. So you don't want to be too far back because the ball will start to rise up. So most of the time you're going to be more or less within just being able to reach forward and touch the racket with the table. And if you're too much deeper than that, it's okay if you're attacking strongly, but most of the time if you're within sort of just being able to touch that table, you're going to be able to handle most of the short stuff. During ordinary, easy sort of rallies, you'll be at the right depth. And if your opponent hits something strong, you can just go back a little bit and play the ball just from a fraction deeper. How to know where to go? Generally, you're going to move to your comfortable depth where you like to play your strokes from. If your opponent's taking and preparing a big swing, big powerful looking swing with a lot of backswing, if he's doing that, you'll probably need to move a fraction deeper. And if he's taking a very small swing, or looking that he's going to hit the ball over the table like that, you're probably going to be able to come in a little bit because the ball's not likely to go quite as deep. So it's more for depth, it's more a case of, for new players, go to your comfortable depth. If your opponent's taking big swing, go further back. If he's taking a small swing, don't come right onto the table and cramp yourself against the table, but by all means make sure that you're just in at a comfortable, ready to handle the short stuff at your comfortable sort of depth. If you combine those two elements, if you are able to do your left, right and your depth together, you'll always be more or less have the right direction to move towards while you're waiting for your opponent to play the ball. And that's an important point to make, is that it's not your final position where you actually play the ball from. This is just your waiting location where you're moving towards, so that when your opponent does actually hit the ball, you're able to handle best whatever he throws at you. So if I'm hitting the ball from out here to there, I'm going to start moving towards here. If I'm quick, I may get there in time to actually stand still. If I'm not as fast or I'm a bit off balance, I may only be on my way there. I may only get to here by the time my opponent hits the ball. If that's the case, what will happen is I'll be on my way, he'll hit the ball, and what I now have to do is move to the next location. If I get there and can stand still, what I now do is I'm looking to see where he's hitting it, and if he hits it wide out here, I'm going to take another step. If he hits out there, I'm going to take a step back over here. And if he hits into my power zones where I'm nice and comfortable, I can stand still and just play a heavy shot. If he hits into my playing elbow, then what I'll do is I'll move over here. It's coming into my elbow. I'll either keep going and play, or I'll come back and play there. So we're not saying it's the final place. It's really just our best waiting location before we have to move again. And quite often, as I said, you won't get there. You won't actually get there before you have to start. And so it tends to flow. You'll quite often see that, especially as the rallies get faster and the play gets better. The players don't sort of get there, stop and move. They'll be moving or coming back, depending. So it tends to flow and blend a little bit more together. So just to kind of recap, really, with this idea is, firstly, hit the ball. Do your best estimate of where your opponent's going to take the ball from. That will give you a good idea of what angles he can hit. Get to the centre of those angles so that your racket's along the centre of it. Make sure that you're facing the ball and not just down the table. Face the ball. Point the racket a little bit to the right of the ball so that you're in a true neutral one. And then, as your opponent hits the ball, be ready to move as you need to move. If you're moving as you're doing it, you're watching and you just keep going, or you hit the ball, start moving, and then come back. And that just depends how much pressure you're under and how fast the rally is going. But those are the basic principles of being able to say, well, I've done this, he goes there, these are his angles, I'm going to come roughly to here, he looks like he's taking a big swing, alright, I'll go further back as I recover. He looks like he's taking a small swing, I'll come in a little bit as I recover. And it becomes very, very instinctive. So if you understand the principles, you won't have to run through them in your head as you play, but they'll let you know roughly where you should be going. And as you continue to play, you'll get better and better at doing that. You won't have to really think about it too much consciously. You'll just find yourself moving to the best waiting locations before playing the next stroke. Thanks for watching.